Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good day, everyone. Thank you very much again for coming and joining us today. With us, we have very distinguished guests, three distinguished guests that joining in together on the Amanie Media, in collaboration with the Humanitarian Development Centre, or HDC, of MERCY Malaysia, for our third webinar entitled How Could Islamic Social Finance, or ISF, help to fill current gaps in humanitarian work? So with us today is Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal Perdaus, President of MERCY Malaysia. How are you, Dato? Okay. Okay, I move to the next guest, our distinguished brother from Dubai, Mr. Houssam Chahine, the head of private sector partnership, okay, from UNHCR. Welcome, Brother Houssam.
Thank you very much, Razi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And the last but not least, our distinguished Sharia scholar and also founder of Amanie Group, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar. Welcome, Datuk. Okay, our topic for today, our topic for today is rendering or circling around the issues and the highlights of Islamic social financing. So basically, if I can give a quick introduction, Islamic social financing, or ISF, are the form of corporate social responsibility or act of humanitarian and charity that is using some of the instrument in Islamic finance or Sharia, such as the zakat or wakaf, and now with the new concept of sukuk instrument that used for green or a humanitarian purpose, and few others. So it has becoming a trend in the Muslim country and even the non-Muslim country or worldwide to look into the possibility of ISF in supporting more projects and works for charitable works or humanitarian projects. And we have recently receiving news and observing the strong development in the Middle East, whereby the UNHCR, led by Mr. Houssam Chahine today, has also come out with their Zakat Fund. So this is a new and very exciting development for us to mainstreaming some of the Islamic finance instrument to support the needs of the world. So without further ado, I would like to invite Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal Perdaus to share with us today on some of the activities of MERCY Malaysia in the past or present with regard to the utilization or taking the initiative to putting in ISF as the model of alternative or fundraising to fund some of its projects for humanitarian. Over to you, Dato.
Thank you very much, Razi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to Amanie Group for agreeing to co-host this webinar. It's very timely. It's both for the reasons of Ramadan as well as for the fact that we're in the middle of the biggest pandemic that the world has seen in over 100 years. So I'll be direct and brief. I think I do not need to elaborate on the importance and the significance of Islamic social finance in humanitarian action, as well as we are seeing now in a health crisis. This has been more or less formalized after the World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul in 2016, whereby the world came together and realized that the formal global system for humanitarian financing and funding was never going to be enough. And part of the solution was to look at alternative funding streams, and the biggest one, in fact, was identified to be Islamic social finance. Now, coming from there, we've seen over the last 5 years since then, an exponential growth, if you like, of interested parties, both in the humanitarian sector per se, as well as major UN agencies like UNHCR, and we have Houssam here with us today, as well as the private sector, and also at the community level of people and bodies and organizations wanting to put forth their Islamic social finance contributions through to good causes, and to ensure that the funding that they put forth will be well spent. They identify organizations as well as parties or beneficiaries who may benefit most from their contributions. So, and this has gone on now for more than a few years in a more systematic way. Prior to 2016, of course, it was already there, but perhaps after 2016, it's become more systemized and systematic. It's also involved organizations who we don't usually relate to Islamic finance and Islamic social finance. So it's not just Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions that are involved, but also conventional banking institutions, multilateral institutions, as well as UN agencies, etc. Where NGOs are concerned, it's no longer just Islamic-based or Muslim-based NGOs who delve into Islamic social finance for their financing and funding. And it's now gone across to even Western and even non-Western, non-Muslim NGOs looking at Islamic social finance as sources of financing. So with regards to our own experience at MERCY Malaysia, since we've actually begun doing or taking contributions from Islamic social finance sources since about 10 years ago, even before the World Humanitarian Summit. But again, I must say it was in a more haphazard and less systematic manner. The usual way before was for zakat to be given by individuals and by individual organizations directly. Since then, of course, we have gone on to a more systematic way of doing things. We have already got an Islamic social finance unit in our own organization. We have separate accounting and accounts for our Islamic social finance contributions, so that there will be not much questioning as to the validity and the purity, etc., of the funds. And we've also got Shariah advisors like Dr. Daud Bakar, who himself is one of our advisors and who heads our Shariah advisory panel, to advise us on the use and utilization of these funds. We have gone on a few tracks at the moment. For an organization our size, we have found that zakat still continues to be an optimal and useful tool. However, we have found that because in Malaysia especially, but also internationally, there are official zakat bodies, etc. An organization like MERCY Malaysia will need to align itself with zakat bodies in the country or countries where we operate to actually optimize getting through to zakat funds for humanitarian causes. And our Indonesian colleagues and counterparts and NGOs over there in Indonesia have gone further with this and are far ahead of many organizations worldwide. They have their own legitimate recognized zakat bodies, for example, and they work directly with a national zakat body in Indonesia. Indonesia, of course, has one advantage over us here in Malaysia, simply because here in Malaysia we have more than one zakat body, more than one official zakat body, because the affairs of Islam and anything under Islamic affairs goes under the states, and so we have like 9 or 10 if we count the federal territories zakat bodies. So far, we have found this to be good, and it has enabled us to widen our reach and enable us to reach out also to more beneficiaries. Of course, we still receive direct contributions from people who do so, but we are unable to give them their official zakat receipts, etc. With regards to direct zakat contributions from these zakat bodies themselves, we also continue to receive them, and we have allocated projects and programs that they see fit. Now, going further, we have also went into wakaf, and however, the nature of wakaf is such that although in Malaysia at the moment, there are already wakaf bodies, state wakaf bodies, into more complex. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, MERCY Malaysia had not been able to actually utilize this tool very well. However, I'm happy to say, grateful to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala that that we have been able to, in this COVID-19 pandemic, use the wakaf instrument effectively, whereby we set up a wakaf for ventilator fund. And within 2 weeks, I think, within 2 weeks, we had already achieved our target. And within 4 weeks, we had to close the fund because there was oversubscription. Because the fund was meant to buy ventilators for Ministry of Health frontline ICUs, and we were concerned that if there was too much funding coming through to this fund, that we won't be able to deliver as many ventilators as donors would have liked. And so, being a responsible organization, we actually had to close that particular fund. Now, it's interesting because there are two issues here related to wakaf, which I think brought the interest up to another level among our individual donors, especially, but also among organizations and companies. It is this concept of perpetuity and perpetual reward from the Almighty, as long as the instrument or the ventilator or the thing that you wakaf for is being utilized and being used for a good cause, as long as the patient is using the ventilator, that you do get reward for it, that actually interested people to come forward and give in huge amounts and in droves. So so this is an aspect which I think needs further looking into. Now, for an organization of MERCY Malaysia size, we have not been able to tap into this sukuk instrument as yet, although we've had several discussions with several interested parties. The reason being is that in all probability, we are not big enough in terms of our size, and we haven't found yet, at least not yet, a guarantor that will be able to underwrite a sukuk, issuance of a sukuk for humanitarian cause, as with MERCY Malaysia as its main beneficiary. So at the moment, we're still looking at this instrument and as to how it can be done. However, on a larger scale and with bigger organizations, the IFRC, for example, has done fairly well with this. They have already got, I think, an arrangement with the Islamic Development Bank, as well as some banks have also got onto the issuance of green as well as humanitarian sukuk. Before I close, I'd like to put forth just 2 points I think that will be worthwhile for discussion. Number one is the all-important point of ASNAF and who qualifies for zakat, especially in a humanitarian crisis, and especially in a situation like the COVID-19 pandemic, like we're having now. And this not only applies to Malaysia, it could also be applicable, this question can also be applicable worldwide. Can, for example, Islamic Social Finance funding be used for non-Muslims, non-Muslim beneficiaries, etc.? The other pertinent issue which I'd like to bring forth to the audience and as well as to my fellow panelists is the issue, of course, of overlap. We already have an early warning today of a possible earthquake, yeah, and a possible typhoon as well hitting the Philippines. We have got this situation where the COVID-19 pandemic is unlikely to go away anytime soon, yes? And so how would that then work out in terms of Islamic social finance, and how then can Islamic social finance tools be used to assist in humanitarian operations? As far as MERCY Malaysia is concerned, it should be as flexible as possible, meaning that it need not only be for the more obvious reasons or projects like food, like medicine. It should also be available for other more complex operations. But of course, these are things that needs further discussions and elaboration by the ulama especially. And last but not least, should a vaccine be found for COVID-19, and should treatment be effective treatment, that is, be available at last, say next year, how would Islamic Social Finance be positioned to help enable the poorest and the most vulnerable, regardless of whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, to be able to access these vaccines and medication? With that, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dato Faizal. Very insightful information that you have shared for MERCY's some of MERCY's achievement in the current situation. And I would like to congratulate you and the MERCY team for the success of its Wakaf fund for the ventilator. As we know that the ventilator is one of the most important items needed everywhere in the world, perhaps. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to bring one point that highlighted by Dr. Faizal just now, which is on zakat as one of the largest contributor of ISF. Now I'm bringing this subject to you, Brother Houssam. Can you share with us about the success of UNHCR Zakat Fund, a little bit on the history, the struggle that you have gone through? I mean, I was made understand that you were the pioneer for this initiative, so I'm very honored to have you here. So can you share with us some of a very good story that you have built in UN itself, in UN agency itself, in bringing in the ISF initiative, which is very, to many of us, to all of us, this is a kind of a breakthrough. Congratulations in advance as well. Over to you now.
Thank you very much, Razi, and of course, salam to everyone and Ramadan Kareem in the last 10 days to everyone, to your listeners and the gentlemen, our friends on the panel. The idea of the Zakat Fund, actually, I just recall when I was looking at my PowerPoints when I started with UNHCR, and I think it goes back to 2012 when we introduced the idea of introducing zakat to the organization to support refugees. And maybe I want to tap into a point that Dr. Faizal brought, where Islamic social finance should be aligned as well and introduced to causes and humanitarian causes where they are not the usual or what we consider as usual. So to me, back in the days, the refugee issue or the displacement issue, and currently we're talking about 70 million, over 70 million persons or people around the world who are displaced between refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people. So this huge country without borders is, to me and to colleagues who are working on this program, are not the usual suspects, if you wish, for such a program, for Islamic social finance or Islamic philanthropy, or even specifically zakat. We started the journey to be very transparent with you in a very shy way, and internally it took us around 3 years to kick off and make sure that we meet the requirement when it comes to zakat, that we are aligned. We had the main, I have to say, the main milestone we had to do is partnering with the right people, with the experts, where they can give us the right advice on Sharia compliance or zakat compliance. And this is where we started. The main challenge for us internally was really to make sure that we comply 100% with the zakat compliance policy. So what we did is we started bottom up. So we started in Jordan back then in 2016, where we worked with the colleagues there on the ground to make sure that zakat serves the cash-based intervention around $170 per family. By then serves five members families, and that program was the easiest for us to do, because first we could waive the any overhead for the zakat donations that people are contributing to the program. So no overhead was taken for that program. The other one, we agreed on very transparent and very straightforward reporting to zakat donors all around the world to this program. These were the main two things, and we made sure as well that the beneficiaries are as well, they deserve this zakat. So we made sure that through our protection program, our database, that are the most vulnerable, we had to prioritize as well. So that was the pilot project, Razi, and what we did after that, we worked with other operations. Second was in Lebanon between 17, 18, and then now we expanded to 8 operations with UNHCR. So obviously it took us a lot of years. So we are a startup, even though we are, as a UN agency, usually very old and complicated when it comes to the structure. But I think with Islamic Social Finance, humbly, I have to say we are a startup, and we are still a startup. And the Zakat program turned into a Zakat fund in 2019, where we launched the fund publicly, and we said this is a global fund starting here from the region, in the MENA region, but our ambition is really to go global through partnerships mainly. So the objective is really to make sure that we have the right partnerships locally through NGOs, through charities, through government organizations, where we can together work to serve the people from the displaced population I mentioned, and the right program to serve them through, whether through UNHCR directly or through partners. Last year, as well, I'm very happy to report back, and I just want to mention that just before Ramadan, on the 19th of last month, we just launched the yearly report for our zakat for the Islamic Philanthropy Program, but of course focused on the Refugee Zakat Fund. And I'm happy to report that we served, alhamdulillah, more than a million individuals in eight countries. And that was through mainly contributions from foundations or institutions. So that's the partnership part. And I think the value we add in there is where we can reach the beneficiaries. In some cases, it's so hard in places where you have conflict, and it's not easy to reach, and it's very challenging from a security, from different aspects, where UNHCR and other UN agencies and international NGOs might have better access technically to beneficiaries. And this is mainly one of, I think, the value that we might be able to add continuously. But at the same time, we do as well implement through other partners on the ground. This year, actually, when we talk about the gap, I think, and going as well to what Dr. Faizal mentioned on the humanitarian gap, and this is one of the main discussion point today, I think is changing. So when we go back to 2016, I think the number by then was $20 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Now we're talking about the last COVID-19 appeal was launched a few days ago, is around $6.7 billion, just to make sure we prevent the most affecting negative effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think that the scene is really changing, and now we're dealing with a moving target. Even for us, for UNHCR, we're looking at our cash assistance program, and we see week after week the needs are becoming more and more, because you're looking at, from a poverty perspective, even though COVID-19 is a healthcare disaster, but it's on refugees, and the most vulnerable is more of a poverty situation and protection situation. So we need to make sure that this is covered as well. And at the same time, the numbers that we have currently are big as well. So what we're talking about of this $6.7 billion UN and NGO and partners appeal, actually it's not only UN appeal, but as well NGOs, we're talking about for UNHCR $290 million extra on what we had to distribute in a usual challenging situation. So we're looking as well, I'm following on the steps of Dr. Faizal as well, because he mentioned it all anyway, and we're following up to see if we can tap into, with our partners, of course, into the waqf and endowment part, serving refugees, and other tool of Islamic social finance. And again, what I think is what we see innovative, what we call innovative finance as UN, I think it's been there for a long time for organizations like MERCY Malaysia and others. I think maybe I'll stop here, and maybe we can just not to take more time from your guests.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Houssam. It's very exciting to hear from you and to get an update from UNHCR. I believe this is a very strong success story to share and to promote to the rest of the world, especially to the Muslim-dominant country where ISF is one of the regular practice. Yeah, this is something that we may want to promote and tell everyone. Okay, I coined one important element that you have mentioned about your first challenge establishing the zakat, which is to get it 100% okay, Sharia compliant, no issues, sensitivity check, Sharia compliant check. So these are a very good bridge or something that I can link to the next speaker, who is a global Sharia advisor and also ulama who can make view and fatwas, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar. So Sharia compliance is always been an integral and critical part of every process involving ISF. Okay, what do you have to say about it? And maybe you want to share some of your thought and view from your experience and how Sharia can actually streamline and mainstream to the next level of ISF. Over to you, Dato.
Okay, thank you, Razi. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and my greetings and salam to Dr. Faizal and Brother Houssam. I'm intrigued to listen from both of them how successful are they in their respective world, respective innovative products like Wakaf Fund for MERCY and Zakat Fund for the entity in Dubai. This is a good initiative, though you might have some problem. It doesn't matter, because the starting point would be more critical and more essential. The more people are familiar with, the more people are, are talking about it, and the more people will come forward to support in one way or another. Okay, I think the topic of Islamic social finance in relation to or the humanitarian work is quite important, because Islamic social finance can be used for education, can be used for poverty eradication, and what have you. Whatever good and essential in the community, which is not taken care of by the mainstream, which is underserved. So Islamic social finance can be a kind of rescue, if you like, to look into or look after and to fill the gap when needed. So humanitarian effort or humanitarian work is one of the interesting area, because somehow in the 21st century we are still having many millions of refugees, not to mention the victim of or the natural calamities which are beyond our control. But some of the crises are within human control, some are not within the control. So that's why we need to continue talking about zakat, wakaf, sadaqah, and sukuk, and all the purification of Islamic fund, Islamic banks money to be channeled to this kind of activities. Because at the end of the day, it is about life of many fellow humans on this planet. It is about the dignity of life. It's about the ability to be able to work on their own, ability to support themselves and their family. So the humanitarian work is quite a long process, and we shouldn't and we can't stop at any point of the value chain of making the victims of the war, of the calamities, or what have you, back to their normal life, so that they can be sustainable on their own. So zakat is one of the sources of funding, but zakat would surely invite so many controversial discussion. Particularly, zakat has been deemed as part of the religious contribution. I have my own different point of view. Yes, zakat is a religious contribution by the Muslim rich people, those who are rich and individual in nature, not the companies, not what have you. Even the companies, it fall back upon the shareholders who are Muslim, so individual Muslim. But the beneficiaries, interestingly, are not necessarily Muslim. Of course, in the case of humanitarian and COVID-19 victim, some scholars were saying that we can look the non-Muslim beneficiaries from the mu'allafati qulubuhum, those whose heart are to be reconciled. But for me, as a person, I wanted to put the non-Muslim, when they need the support, they could come under the poor and the needy category instead of the al-mu'allafa qulubuhum, because there is quite a remote interpretation of saying that those who are being affected by COVID-19 are those whose heart are to be reconciled. The moment we give the zakat, so we wanted to make them close to Islam and to be, a kind of close and harmonious with Islamic teaching, which could be true, but for all intent and purposes and all the balance of probabilities, I would argue for the former, not the latter, that non-Muslim, when they are poor and needy, they could be supported through the zakat as well at the end of the day. Waqaf, of course, is no issue. It is open to everyone. The challenge of Waqaf, I think Dr. Faizal mentioned about the requirement of perpetuity, which hinders the development of Waqaf quite a lot, not quite a bit, quite a lot, because we are still trapped and constrained in the old view of the meaning of perpetuity. In fact, the ventilator that we are subscribing and we are giving out to the hospital in Malaysia, if you take the literal and the strict interpretation, they are not sustainable, because it can be only used for a few years, and after that, it will damage, and it need to be repaired, it need to be upgraded, it need to be even replaced entirely. So, but the scholars are kind enough to allow that, because perpetuity is not the main issue. The main issue is the benefit that can give out to the beneficiaries. My point of view, Razi and this esteemed panelists, it is zakat as a waqaf is all about transferring your wealth to the wealth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the basic requirement. But whether that asset is perpetual, non-perpetual is not the concern that we should be aware of. And the other comment of Waqaf, again, I have been discussing with MERCY and Dr. Faizal in particular. We need to move away from perpetuity as well as tangibility. Zakat is always looked as tangible. We have to make Waqaf on property, building, again, ventilator and machine. Whereas Waqaf in the classical references can be also used for to finance or to support the services of doctors, of nurses, lecturers, professors, where the Waqaf can be used to pay their expenses, their salaries, their their need, day-to-day need, as someone working beyond the borders and what have you. I have been talking about that. Perhaps I need to put a book rather to cement all the argument, to put a proposal to the entire Islamic world to be open about it and to make zakat and waqaf more palatable, more impactful to the whole community. And this is something great, because the Muslim Ummah, they like to do waqaf, but we are the one who put the restriction on them. We are putting a lot of restriction, and that's why they are not in favor of waqaf just for building. They wanted to help those on the ground. They wanted to provide medicine all the way to those on the ground. They wanted to help the doctors to fly there. They wanted to help the nurses and the logistic guys to be involved in the whole transaction. And they are willing to put the wakaf. But if they were told, this is not wakaf, this is only sadaqah, we push them off. And this is the challenge I'm sharing with you and all the viewers around the globe, so that we can be more human in our approach to help the humanitarian work from the Islamic Social Finance perspective. I will leave my comment at that juncture. Thank you very much, Razi and all the panelists for this great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dato, Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar. What I really impressed and like about your comment every time I hear is that you make explanation so simple, so easy, and so clear that it opens up our mind to feel, to think and to feel that, you know, this is something which is really good for everyone, for the mankind, and without any biasness. So thank you again for a very insightful input from you, Dato. So yeah, I mean, if I can take a little bit of your point over there, and I combine with Dr. Faizal's point, if the zakat money that we have, which is in millions in numbers, can be used to buy the vaccine for COVID-19 and to be shared to everyone, I mean, this is one of the probably historical achievement of humankind, using the wakaf money to save the world. So this is something that we have to think about. So we have heard from all the three panelists. So let's look into some of the questions. I have 3 questions here from the participant, and I believe these 3 questions can be equally passed to each one of you. So I'll go with the first one. The question from Muhammad Asri Jafar is whether UNHCR or rather how UNHCR handle the distribution of funds in terms of manpower. If you can share with him and everyone else. Thank you. Over to you, Brother Houssam.
No, thank you very much. Very important question. As mentioned, we started actually with the more sophisticated program in Jordan. That was mainly cash distribution to families, and to make sure that human intervention is minimal. We made sure that it's happening through a technology that colleagues there partner with the bank on, which is the iris scan ATM distribution. That in that way we made sure that there is no duplication. It's very of distribution. We made sure that data is there, who received, who didn't. At the same time, we made sure as well that we have a track when beneficiaries, for example, are going back home, and that's the optimal objective anyway. They don't receive that cash anymore. So because they will not be beneficiaries for this program anymore. So this is where we started. In other countries, not the same technology doesn't really necessarily exist. So in Lebanon, we had ATM card. So colleagues as well working on that. So people. Families as well receive that through ATM, but through cards. And what we don't use is direct cash. So we make sure that there's no human intervention in the distribution to make sure that the reporting and transparency in there. In some cases, like Bangladesh, for example, last Ramadan, we had to distribute in-kind support for families because cash intervention is not there, because you don't have the machines within the camp. So we made sure that we implement the zakat program on gas needs, cooking gas needs for families in Ramadan, to make sure that they have iftar and suhoor and they are sufficient in that. And at the same, so this is mainly what it is, the reporting. So every refugee is receive SMS that he is eligible, and he goes and collect his money. And we do reporting every 3 months, even for donors who are giving a small amount of money, to make sure that where the money, what countries are going, it's going on, and where it's distributed. I hope this answers the question.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Houssam. It's a very good answer. What I can summarize is that you take the process very diligently to make sure that the recipient and the process, the utilization of fund and the process of the fund going to the recipient or beneficiaries is is a fail-safe process. Yeah. Thank you. That makes me feel that I want to start giving my zakat to UNHCR. Maybe towards the end you can share how we can do that. I mean, from Malaysian, not only individual, but the banks, the corporation, how they can contribute their zakat money. I know there's a lot of bankers here listening to us, and they have a lot of money that they can contribute for zakat. Not only to MERCY, now to UNHCR. Maybe towards the end you can share. So I go to my next question. This is for Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal. How does MERCY Malaysia ensure that its ISF fund has been utilized efficiently? Do you have impact measurement system for each program using ISF fund, etc.? So this is more like how do you review and audit the utilization of ISF fund? Over to you, Dato.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. Again, it's very important. And I guess before I answer that directly, a very important principle here is that we are very aware that with Islamic Social Finance funds, it is even more incumbent, not to say that it is already not incumbent. It is incumbent for organizations like MERCY Malaysia, like UNHCR, to be accountable, to be transparent, to do timely reporting on all our funds and to all our donors. But especially so with Islamic Social Finance, and we realize that from the word go. So the process we have is fairly straightforward, but it is made to ensure that the reporting at the end of the day will be impactful. So it starts off, like I said, with the fact that we try as much as possible to delegate and separate the Islamic Social Finance funds from the other funds that we get. This is to enable us to keep track diligently and accurately of our Islamic Social Finance fund. So we have more than several accounts, of course, and we ensure that our Islamic Social Finance funding goes through 1 or 2 specific accounts only that we reserve for Islamic Social Finance funds. That's step number 1. Number 2, of course, we have a dedicated unit that will not only receive that funding, but also monitor and track it together with our operations side. Thirdly, if the amount is substantial, and if the donor has already indicated from the very beginning that they or he or she or that particular organization would like to discuss with us as to how the zakat fund is actually going to be utilized, especially for a specific project, we will have that discussion even before the funds are disbursed to us. And once they are, we will then keep the donor up to date. And we've had a few very poignant experiences on this. We also have had situations whereby the reporting has to be done both from the field as well as remotely. So this is an approach which we take seriously. So now, if it is of course actually easier. So for example, an estate of a family, for example, family estate, for example, has already discussed with us how to utilize their particular contribution, be it zakat or sadaqah or wakaf, etc. We will then communicate directly with these donors, and we will furnish them with reports, progress reports on a very timely basis, agreed upon beforehand, and we will make sure that they are in agreement at every step of the way as to how the funds will be disbursed. Another example would be a contribution we receive from one of the state zakat bodies on a yearly basis now. On an annual basis, they give us a particular amount, a few 100,000 ringgit, to be used for paying of fees and helping with the transport and logistics of refugees in Malaysia to hospitals, to government hospitals, if their conditions are serious enough. And so in this particular instance, we actually not only provide them with quarterly reports, we actually, in that quarterly report, will also have detailed itemized reports of each patient who's been referred and who's been transferred. And this is done on an annual basis. Now, I must say that it becomes a little bit more challenging when it is individual donors giving your contributions, yeah. For example, in this COVID-19 pandemic, individual contributions, and perhaps giving small amounts. And alhamdulillah, you know, small or big, you know, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who will judge our contribution, not us, yes? And we are very clear on that. Every cent counts. And so it is perhaps a little bit more difficult for us to report to you if you're an individual, for example, and instead of a few 100,000 ringgit, you are giving perhaps 50 ringgit, yes? Or even 5, or whatever. And this is where the challenge of reporting to an individual donor, especially if you've transferred it online, anonymously, etc., will come. We hope for these donors, for these individual donors who did not specify and whose contributions are also appreciated very much, but they are in modest amounts. We hope that when we furnish you with our end of year or annual report as to how the funds have been distributed, that it will suffice, that you see that we are both accountable as well as transparent in the way we utilize these funds. Of course, should you require further information, our lines are always open, and we have officers from both the fundraising department as well as our Islamic Social Finance unit, as I explained earlier, will be ever ready to answer your questions. So I think the challenge that we face is that it's easier for us to do those regular reporting and reporting to bigger donors. It's harder when it comes to smaller donors. With regards to how we measure the impact in the field, it is the same. We do not put Islamic Social Finance funding projects or Islamic Social Finance funded projects at a lower tier or at a higher tier than we do our other funded projects. We have regular impact assessments. We have regular reporting, which we do from the field office back to HQ and from HQ back to donors. So there is no difference, and we maintain the same high standards as we do for any other reporting. If, for example, we receive any conventional funding from UNHCR or through UNHCR, the way we report back to UNHCR will be the same as we report back our Islamic Social Finance funded projects back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dato. Very deep and also clear explanation from MERCY Malaysia and how things are being done and processed over there. And yeah, I believe MERCY Malaysia is one of those active NGO that promoting Islamic social finance, and it has been really giving a very good return on MERCY's operation, where like in the case of COVID-19, there's a huge number of money under ISF being utilized to help and battling the COVID in the country. Okay, the last or the second last question perhaps is to you, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, but it is rather an interpretive or narrative question that maybe you can enlighten and share a little bit of your view. So the question says that, can we say that zakat could be distributed not only to the 8 asnaf mentioned in Quran? Over to you, Datuk.
Yeah, thank you very much, Razi. Surely we cannot alter the prescribed 8 beneficiaries of zakat, because this is a textual provision by the Quran as far as the zakat beneficiaries throughout the ages and centuries are concerned. What is within our ability as scholars and intelligentsia and jurists is to interpret or reinterpret the very cognitive meaning of each and every of these 8 categories. What do we mean by poor and the needy, or fi sabilillah, for example, and those whose heart are to be reconciled, or fi riqab, for example, the slave. Slave of what? There's no slavery anymore, but slave of financial distress, slave of trap, during the lockdown and they cannot be working. So at the end of the day, it's about the courage to reinterpret these 8 categories of zakat, beneficiaries to suit the current time and the current condition. I cannot help but to comment that the pandemic should be one of the new flavor to inject into the very meaning of poor, the needy, the slave, and the fi sabilillah, and so on and so forth, because this is more praising. Sorry about the thunder here, strong thunder. More praising and more heartening compared to the needy and the poor, because it is about death. It's about life and death. So how to buy the vaccination, how to sponsor the research and development toward getting the right protection, and so on and so forth. So we need to put the right balance in giving new interpretation, fresh interpretation to one or two or the other categories or beneficiaries of zakat as prescribed in the Quran.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dato. So what I can summarize is that we cannot change or alter the Sharia, but the narrative and interpretation grows on case-by-case basis, depends on the situation, circumstances, and outcome that we are facing at the moment. Thank you so much for the explanation.
If I may add on one, because out of 8 categories, it's only one category which is open-ended, which is fi sabilillah. So as if the revelation has make it purposely, if you have satisfied all the 7 categories, we still have one category which is evergreen, ever open-ended for the society to use, which is fi sabilillah, in the cause of Allah, to do what? Poverty and education and research and technology, to the open space, what have you, that could come under a very broad bandwidth of fi sabilillah. Thank you, Razi.
Thank you very much, Dato. Again, this is something that really struck my heart and my mind. A very simple explanation. It simply says that in Quran, they are fixed and also variable. And the variable is something that we can explore, and the mystery or the knowledge is never end. We can continue, adjust and explore the context of variable in Quran to fit in the purpose on case-by-case basis. And thank you so much for opening the secret that we may have overlooked. Thank you. Okay, I really like to end, but I have the last minute. I have 2 very good questions that I don't think I want to miss it. So I will take this question before we end. Okay, the first question, maybe I can ask Mr. Houssam to share his input from being under United Nations agencies and being all over the world. Maybe you can see this better perhaps. So the question is, the world is practicing crowdfunding. It is a good tool to support initiatives or organizations that are in need of financial support. In the same light, how can any of the Islamic social financing be made available in such approach? Simply to say that make Islamic social financing available to all.
I think this is a very important question, because when we started testing as UN agency, and I mentioned we were so shy about it at the beginning, we wanted to test how people feel about a UN agency or international non-Muslim agency saying that we're going to help you to channel zakat to beneficiaries. And we did this online, and we asked some questions, we did some polls, not very high profile, but we wanted to make sure that we see what people feel about, what Muslims actually specifically feels about it. And then the response was very positively surprising. We saw a lot of people saying, how can we give you the zakat? So when we were asking, how do you see, or do you agree if a UN agency like UNHCR distributes zakat to refugees who are eligible for zakat under the 8 categories, or 4 out of 8 of them? So people were saying, yes, of course, how can we give zakat to you? And I think part of the reason is there are a lot of excellent organizations around the world who are doing great work, like MERCY Malaysia, but as well, there are some challenges in different places in the world where you have transparency problems, where you don't know where your zakat is going specifically. And I think there is a hunger globally among a lot of Muslims to understand in very transparent way where the money is going. So opening the Islamic social finance broadly, digitally, and I think in the after COVID-19 pandemic era or time, everything will be digital for a long time. I think nothing will go back. So I don't think people will collect funding anymore by boxes in the mosque, which is a very very traditional way that I do respect. But I think moving forward, everybody will go digital. Everybody have to go to be much more transparent, and opening up, as the mentioned Waqf initiative, and I think putting things online and reporting back in a very transparent way, as Dr. Faizal was saying, that's the way forward. So the way to open it up is to make sure that this is backed up by a lot of reporting, transparent data, and very straightforward impact showing to the public where that money is going. So I think crowdfunding is very important, but even the definition of crowdfunding can be in different ways. For UNHCR, what we're doing now in Ramadan, we have a campaign called Every Gift Counts, and Every Gift Counts, and this is mainly focusing on the persona of each fa'al khair or donor, and this is where we're focused on. And what we're saying is, your gift make an impact, and we'll make sure you see this impact. Again, I'm following on Dr. Faizal's leadership in this, but I think we're trying to, as a startup in Islamic Social Finance agency, this is where we're trying to go. Over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Houssam. Very interesting. You put a very good point, which again I'm repeating this twice. How can I start paying zakat to UNHCR? So yeah, we reserve that in the last 2 minutes of your speech in the session. Okay, next question. Okay, this is more for, I think, for Datuk Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar as a Sharia advisors in Islamic financial institution, perhaps. And also it can relate to MERCY, because MERCY has a lot of well, I would say livelihood program. Yeah, so the COVID-19 not only affected the health and life and also humanity of the world, but it's also hurting a lot of economy of the countries. So we will see a lot of problem within the SME area or small business entity or entrepreneurship, even a big company for that matter. A lot will be hurt post COVID-19 effect. So the question is that, can zakat or wakaf fund be used as a soft, I have to change it, I will not use the word loan, I will use the word financing. Okay, can zakat or wakaf fund be used as soft financing for micro entrepreneurs to enable them to earn their own livelihood over the time, thus making the wakaf sustainable as again financings that are repaid? Dato, if you want to share some of your view and comment here.
Yeah, I think thank you, Razi. Perhaps there's nothing wrong and harm to maintain the word loan over there. Perhaps the one who put the intervention was referring to Qazul Hassan. It could be both. It could be Qazul Hassan or the financing with the profit. But I would understand the question coming from the context of Qazul Hassan. So we take from the zakat and the wakaf to give some capital, some soft loan, if you like, for them to start off the business and to repay back the loan in the future. I think no harm in doing that. And this is something that wakaf can be used, provided we are okay with the definition of perpetuity just now. For zakat, it will be a bit easier. We can put it under fi sabilillah, for example, or we can, to be a bit straightforward. I don't want to complicate the matter because this is the debate among the scholars, because the word innama sadaqatu lil fuqara wal masaki wal amilina alayha wal mu'allafati qulubuhum has been defined very literally, meaning to say the zakat should end up with the ownership in the hand of the poor, the needy, and the workers of zakat, al-amilina alayha, and those whose heart are to be reconciled. The word li, lil fuqara. And scholars have been discussing the word li min bi tamlik, to give the ownership to the poor and the needy. Whereas this one is not creating ownership just to give the assistance. So we cannot be putting under the first four. Perhaps we can push this category for fi sabilillah to help revive the economy. Wakaf is a bit tall order. I don't think the scholars are ready to use the wakaf for the loan at the moment, unless we can go for cash wakaf, so that the money can be invested, and that return of the money can be used as the soft loan and as a level to be created to make the scholars happy, most of the scholars happy with the fatwa. At the end of the day, Razi and all the panelists and the viewers, I have to say something that, zakat is not social finance, to be honest. The origin of zakat is imperative, is obligation, but the spending of it, the distribution is targeted at social welfare. And this is very interesting about Islam. It's legal, it's imperative, but it benefits the society. The rest, yes, is social finance. From the academic point of view, zakat is very, very distinguished. It is an obligation, it is imperative from the lawgiver, but it serves the community in the social affair. So this is the beauty of zakat. We have no word to describe how beautiful zakat is compared to the other legal system. Thank you, Razi.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, for a very impressive comment and very eye-opening, heart-opening, everything. This is a very good, quick input from you. Okay, we are over the time now. Okay, I have one last request to all the panelists. I will give each of you less than 2 minutes for you to give your final words, yeah? And especially for Houssam, please also include how we can, be taking part in UNHCR Zakat initiative, because not much information that we can get over here, I'll be very honest. So this is probably a good way for you to explain to the people. Okay, I'll start with Brother Houssam first, yeah? Over to you, 2 minutes. Thank you.
The easiest way to be part of the Zakat program is really to go to zakat.unhcr.org. There is a whole, it's a page, but at the same time, it has a blog. It has all the fatwas there. It has all the, we have reports, our annual and quarter reports in there. So for anyone wants to know more details about whether from the policy and Sharia side, or from where the money is going, or the distribution, or the countries, or the beneficiaries, they can go to zakat.unhcr.org, and they can give their zakat, calculate their zakat through the zakat calculator in there, and they can be part of this. We have a team as well who is take care of the zakat program, reporting, communication, making sure that the donors are served with the meaning of transparency and knowing the impact. So that's the easiest way to do that. At the same time, we're open to any conversation with any Islamic institutions, and that's our ultimate goal, to work together with NGOs and Islamic finance institutions to make sure that we leverage on our programs and make sure that the beneficiaries are benefiting from their Islamic social finance or zakat. And at the same time, they can contact me directly if they wish, and I can put my email after this panel. And thank you very much again, Razi and colleagues, for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Houssam, for again a very good sharing with us today, and it's a very excited for us to know, big organization like UNHCR adopting Islamic social finance as one of the alternative of funding. We wish and we pray and we wish that it will grow bigger and bigger under United Nations umbrella in terms of implementing Islamic social finance to basically uplift the whole situation of the world. This is something that we can feel proud of. Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal, I would like to congratulate yourself and also MERCY Malaysia for doing a very good job on ISF, especially during the battling the COVID at the moment. I was made understand that we have you utilize a lot of funding under ISF to buy big items and to support our frontliners. I pass to you now for your final say and whatever you need to share and your hope on this subject. Over to you.
Thank you, Razi. I think on the part of both myself as well as of MERCY Malaysia and NGOs generally, I think the way forward is very clear. Islamic social finance is here to stay. I think it is very, very important that we realize that it's no longer an if we use Islamic social finance. The way the world is at the moment and the way finances are generally at the moment, there is actually no option for us in the humanitarian sector, as well as now, as we can see, in the health sector, but also, as the last question had implied, in other sectors, in the economic sector as well, to lean heavily on Islamic social finance. And I'd like to echo what Dr. Daud said, that there has to be some innovation, and it is up to us, for us, those who are not scholars, to pose questions constantly and inquire from scholars like Dr. Daud what is permissible and what is not, and hopefully we will get to where we will not, of course, alter any of the commandments, but as Dr. Daud had said, we will try as far as possible to make sure that those whom we can alleviate suffering from through these tools, we will try to do so. And the world is borderless these days, and it is so much more important these days rather than perhaps before that Islamic social finance tools be used widely. And as you said, Razi, it will be a gift of Islam and of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's commandments. If, for example, Islamic social finance has a big hand in the research and development and perhaps the completion of a vaccine or effective treatment for COVID-19. And I'd also like to congratulate UNHCR, and I think Muslims among us in the panel and also in the audience will echo you, Razi, that we wish all the best to UNHCR, and there is no better example of the truth if UN agencies who are primarily secular and are not Islamic based themselves now use Islamic social finance as a main tool of financing. So thank you very much, everyone, and Ramadan Kareem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad Faizal. Yes, and to Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, again, thank you very much for your wisdom, leadership, and to open our eyes, open our heart. And people like yourself, the Sharia scholars and advisors in Islamic finance, you are the strong enabler for Islamic social finance. There's a lot of bottlenecks issue, there's a lot of delay, there's a lack of speed in terms of the development of Islamic social finance, just because many couldn't understand or couldn't interpret or couldn't see how you look at the things. So again, on behalf of the fraternity of Islamic Social Finance, we would like to thank you for really opening our heart and our mind to make it things so universal, so inclusive, and so helpful to everyone. So perhaps you may want to say something to the rest of our participants and panelists today about how you feel on the whole thing. Over to you, Dato.
Yeah, I think I tried to be brief and straight to the point. The pandemic COVID-19 has made the heart of the people soft across the globe. And this is a good lesson, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested human being with something universal for the first time ever, people come back to their original emotional feeling and submission to whatever power that believe in their God and our Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the day, the hearts of the people becoming soft and most interacting with the ecosystem. This is good for social finance to come back to this world. Number two, I wanted to quote Martin Luther King the Jr. When he was quoted of saying, "There is always the right time to do the right thing." I think the time has come, given the pandemic COVID-19, to relook into our jurisprudence, to create new jurisprudence, and to bring back the priorities in place. We have to help the economy of the people, to make sure people can bring the food to the table, without which the whole ecosystem will collapse. Education, family, husband, the wife, the all maqasid Sharia will collapse without having something in the food, in the stomach. So this is something some of the participants were saying. We need to rebuild the economy. We need to give back the capital, soft capital, social capital, whatever we need. And we need to have zakat and wakaf to be a bit biased toward this pandemic, just for this year or next year, to help the whole world to recover back on their feet, to bring back the justice and fairness and equality to everyone. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Dato. It is very true that the whole things that we are facing today, the hardship, the pandemic, the calamity of the world, is so unprecedented, and it makes all the heart soft. And this is the right chance for us to unite and to work together and to bring something good and make the world better place to live in with a new normal norm. So thank you very much to my dear panelists. It's a very insightful. I believe all the participants here agree with me that this is something really opened our eyes and our heart. We can't thank you enough, but we pray for your ever success in whatever things that you will take in the future. And for that, I would like to also thank for all the participants that has been interacting and sharing a lot of good questions and thought. And please stay tuned with us. I believe this will bring us to the next further discussion on the same topic of ISF, because 1 hour or is not enough for us to actually break the thought and thinking and bring us to the next level. So I really wish that we can come up with something like this again, with more in-depth discussion with the same panelists, and perhaps we can make it longer. So this is also my wish to everyone. So again, thank you very much, and please have a safe journey home, or if you are in the house, safe preparation for your iftar. And to everyone, thank you very much, and be safe all the time. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.